Welcome back. Now we're going to extend our introduction to JSON objects to see how we can get object-oriented programming style behavior in JavaScript. As I've mentioned, JavaScript's approach to object-oriented is a little bit strange. We're going to take a look at it and see how it works. It turns out, though, you can get kind of all the behavior you might expect, including forms of polymorphism. Polymorphism is easy. Encapsulation we can sort of get, and inheritance, that's the big one. That's what we're going to focus on, is how to get something like inheritance. All right, so we're going to begin by, actually, I'll show you the source code of this, and we'll look at it in the developer console as well, so you can sort of see what we're looking at. We'll begin just with a standard init function, and we'll create things in here so you can sort of see what's going on. Now, there is a built-in object in JavaScript called the object class. Okay, and so one way to make an object is to simply make an object. No, that seems obvious, right? And now here's the strange thing. We have an instance of the object class called O1, but we can actually change its parameters. We can change its attributes we can add a new attribute to the instance. This is very odd, although this is behavior we've also seen in Python. And it comes from JavaScript not really being object-oriented, but functional. And so as you remember the last time, we could add components to an array and an object and a function are all quite similar, actually. So we can add, just by mentioning it, a new attribute called name, and we can give it a value, so that makes it a string attribute. We can also add directly a function. So remember, a function is just another attribute. It's just one whose value turns out to be a function. Oh, that's weird. I know, but it's pretty cool. And if we look at this thing, there we go, in the console, look at O1. It'd be interesting, it lists that as a function. Object, native code. So it doesn't tell us a lot about that. We can do it, but it doesn't seem all that helpful, and there's not that much we could do with it. Now, we can get access to its components, f.name. Oh, not f.name, I'm sorry, o1.name. And that tells us the name. Actually, that's not that helpful. That tells us the name, not the value of the name property. So that's probably not what we were looking for. And it had a greet function, didn't it? O1. Let's see. Okay, it can recognize that's a function. Now we can actually do it, o1.greet. So there is a built-in name attribute. And so this is a little bit confusing, I think. Hi, my name is object. Well, that isn't what we really meant, is it? No, so that just creating an instance of the object and modifying it is not satisfying. So there's a couple of better ways to do it. So here's another one. So we could say O2 gets new object. Okay, that is almost the same, but what we're saying is now run the object function and create an instance of the object that's results. What? I thought object was an object. It's also a function. Welcome to JavaScript. So when we use a function with the new keyword, what we're doing is we're saying whatever that produces is going to be my new object. So we're going to use a function essentially to create an object. Oh my word, this is confusing. I know, but it's just how it is. So this is a preferred way, because now if we say o2.name gets Martha and o2greet gets function, it will actually work okay, and it will call the built-in object constructor. So let's take a look at that. O2. Okay, so that one is correct. The name is Martha, o2.greet. If we just look at it that way, we'll see the function. Okay, and o2.greet, if we run it, it'll run the function. Hi, my name is Martha. We can change the name, o2.name red, o2.greet will work Hi, my name is Fred. I'm wondering about O1 dot name. Sorry, O1 dot name. If I change that manually, gets that. O1 dot greet. Does that work correctly now? Hi, my name is object. So the second approach is better than the first approach. Would you agree with me there? Okay, but that's still not the way we're going to do it, because we want to have really something like an object definition. We really want to have like a constructor, right? We want to have attributes, we want to have methods, and we want it to be consistent. So we'd like to be able to have something like a class, because this is very unsatisfying, just creating the object and sort of willy-nilly adding stuff to it. What would be much better is if we could have some sort of a constructor. And that we could use to build an object of a specific class. Now, JavaScript doesn't really support the notion of classes directly, but we can get the behavior we're looking for nonetheless. Let me show you how we would do it. So down here, I have a function called critter. Okay, and it's just a function. There's nothing special about it, although I did capitalize it because I'm an old school Java programmer, and I'm going to use this function actually as a class constructor. So I'm going to use a capital letter to help me remember this function isn't just a function. It is going to be meant to be used as a constructor. Okay, so function critter. And so inside any function, it turns out I can use the this keyword to represent the current class or the current object that I'm talking about. In this case, I am adding components to the function. The function can have properties. The function can have methods. Yes, because the function is now basically acting like a class. It's weird. I told you it was going to be weird, right? All right, so this dot name gets John, this dot greet gets function, console log, hi, my name is this dot name. So by using the this keyword, essentially what I can do is create a function which is also basically a class. Let's look at that in use. And it looks actually a lot like traditional object-oriented programming. C gets new critter. Don't know why I forgot the semicolon there. It doesn't matter in JavaScript. I can change its name. I can run greet. This is getting closer. So we could use this approach to create a class and be able to reuse it, because the other approach, you'd have to rebuild everything every time. That's going to be too awkward. But now with this methodology, we can say, hey, any function can essentially be a class. So I can actually create essentially a new class called critter. And inside the class, I'm defining its attributes are just this dot variables, and its methods are just this dot functions. Oh, that's kind of cool. So I can, in fact, create an instance of the critter class, and then I can run it through its paces. It can do all of its things. Okay, so that's something like a class. But now what we need would be some kind of inheritance, right? It would be nice to have true encapsulation. JavaScript doesn't support private data members. So you kind of have to just, enforce that yourself, unfortunately. So there's not really a way to do private data members. So we can't do true encapsulation. We could do inheritance. And of course, polymorphism isn't going to make much sense until we do inheritance. So let's look at inheritance. So bitter critter is going to be somehow inherited from critter, and I will overwrite its greet method. So there's your polymorphism. So apparently we have inheritance and polymorphism, right? Psh, no problem. Well, it's weird. Okay, let's take a look at how I defined the bitter critter. There's a couple of ways to do it. Here's the one that I actually did quite a bit in my game engine. I would have done it differently today, but this is working just fine. So here's what I do. I'll make a temporary variable, which is an instance of my parent class, critter. So, all right, I could make a temporary class, and that's going to be an instance of the critter, and that works just fine. Now, I'll add or override any properties, methods that I want on this new version. So, but I'm making these changes to T, my temporary variable attached based on my parent class. And then I can return t. So as long as the function is returning a class, that becomes this bitter critter. So since this is the bitter critter, it is glowering angrily at us. So let's take a look at type of B. It's just an object. Unfortunately, we don't really have classes as such, so you'd have to somehow put that in as a state variable if you really wanted it. But we can do this, b.name, John, b.greet, and I said g.greet, sorry, b.greet. John glowers angrily at you. You need to chill out, John. So that's one way of getting inheritance, and that's the way you'll see it in the game engine I'm going to be producing to you. It's pretty good. It works okay. It is weird. I'll give you that. But essentially what you'll do is you'll make a temporary variable, which is the parent class, modify that temporary variable and return it. And later versions of JavaScript, a newer approach happened, which I like better, but I'm not sure it's any easier to understand. So you can do it without a temporary variable, and this is how you would do it. So I'm going to make another one called the glitter critter, and I'm going to call this. So critter.call this. What that means essentially is declare that my parent is the critter class. So now I don't have to do a temporary variable. I can just say my parent is critter. I can never remember that. I look it up every time. So, but now I can override or extend anything that I wanted from the parent class, and it will still work. So I can still get the behavior of the parent class. I can extend it. I can modify it. So we can get much of the behavior we want from object-oriented programming in JavaScript, although we do have to hack it just a little bit. That's okay. We can get it. Can we get everything? No, I mean, there's not really any notion. We could sort of fake it, but there's not really any notion of, say, virtual methods or interfaces, abstract classes, but you can create a class with empty methods and overwrite them. So that's sort of how we're going to get past that. So there you go. There's our little JavaScript. Now we'll start using this to build ourselves an actual JavaScript game engine. Sound like fun? All right, see you then.